Hello and welcome back to another week of playing Pauper. I'm your host, Jake Stiles, and this week's deck is Burn. I've held off on playing Burn for a while because it's fairly straightforward. However, it's gotten a little bit more interesting recently with the addition of Thermo Alchemist. And also, Peregrine Drake was inexplicably not banned in the latest Ban and Restricted update, which means the metagame is still full of Peregrine Drake decks, and we either have to be aggressive or basically play Peregrine Drake ourselves. And Burn is a deck that is aggressive enough and fast enough to go onto the Peregrine Drake decks and kill them before they get to 5 mana. Without further ado, let's look at the pieces of the deck. So while most of the deck is spells, we do have a couple permanent sources of damage. We have the full 4 Thermal Alchemist. It deals 1 damage a turn and also effectively makes every instant or sorcery we cast deal an extra damage by untapping the Thermal Alchemist. We also have 4 Keldon Marauders. It deals a damage to a target player when it enters or leaves the battlefield, so it generally always does at least 2 damage unless the game ends before it vanishes away. And you also get 1 turn of attacking with it. Some people, including myself, might ask, why don't you get rid of the 8 creatures and run 4 Searing Blaze and 4 Lightning Strike instead for additional burn? And that way you turn off all your opponent's removal spells because you don't have any creatures. And the answer is, Thermal Alchemist and Keldon Marauders are so much better than a 3 damage burn spell for 2. That they're worth inclusion, even though a lot of Pauper decks do have removal, and this turns on effectively their removal and lets them have something to use it on. If you get to keep Thermal Alchemist around, it can deal so much damage. And Keldon Marauders, in addition to always dealing at least 2, so it's almost a 3 damage effect by itself with just the enter and leave the battlefield triggers, it can also block for 1 turn, and then it can either attack or block after that. And having that impact on combat is a very big deal most of the time. It's either a 2 mana 5 damage burn spell, or it allows you to stop your opponent's creatures from attacking you for a turn or 2. The final permanent source of damage we run is the full 4 Curse the Pierced Heart. It's basically a slow Thermal Alchemist. It only does 1 damage a turn, and it can't deal extra damage like Thermal Alchemist does, but very few people run enchantment removal main deck, so it's generally a more reliable source of damage than Thermal Alchemist. On to the spells, we have 4 Lightning Bolt, 4 Chain Lightning, 4 Rift Bolt, 4 Lava Spike. We have all the 1 mana 3 damage effects we can find. Even when they have downsides, such as Chain Lightning has the downside against red decks that they can copy it, Rift Bolt takes a turn and your opponents can see it coming, and Lava Spike can't hit creatures, it can only hit the face. Regardless, most of these always hit the face anyways, and use them to burn the opponent down. Other spells we run are 4 Searing Blaze, which can hit a creature and a player, but you only get the full damage if you make landfall, so even the instant speed isn't that important because generally you want to use it on your main phase. If you use it on your opponent's turn, you obviously can never have landfall triggered, so it'll just do 1 damage to target creature and 1 damage to target player. We also have a Singleton Incinerate, slightly better Lightning Strike or Searing Blaze since it doesn't allow regeneration. It's not generally that important because there's not that many regenerating creatures in the format, but it's nice to have another burn spell. We have the full 4 Needle Drop. It doesn't do a lot of damage, but it does let you cycle through your deck to get to your more important spells. And also the full 4 Fire Blast. It's a little bit awkward having more than 1 in your hand because you might not get to 4 mountains before you want the game to be over, but it's powerful enough at effectively 0 mana when you cast it at the end of the game that you almost always want it. In Burn Sideboard, we have 2 Electricity and 3 Martyr of Ashes. These are good against creature swarm decks. Electricity is good against specifically flying creature tokens, such as in mono white tokens, and also against certain creature decks, while Martyr of Ashes is good against most small creature decks because it can deal a variable amount of damage and not just 1 damage at a time like Electricity. Also in our sideboard, we have the full 4 Pyroblast for combating blue decks, especially Peregrine Drake decks. 4 Smash to Smithereens. This is generally better than Gorilla Shaman in the Burn sideboard because against Affinity, you don't want to blow up all their lands, you just want to kill them. And the Smash to Smithereens giving you 3 damage on top of the artifact removal is generally very good. And finally, we have 2 Molten Rain. This is good against Tron, it's sometimes good against Dimir Teachings, and it's also good against Is It Drake decks because they like to run their bounce lands. So that's Burn, fairly straightforward. You try to stick your Keldon and your Thermo and your Curse of the Pierced Hearts and keep them in play. You point as much burn at the face as you can, you remove creatures when you absolutely have to, and you hope to outrace your opponent and overwhelm them before they can stabilize. If you have a deck suggestion for me, especially one that can combat these crazy Peregrine Drake decks that are still dominating the format and warping the metagame, send it to me, email it to me at pauper@mtggoldfish.com or tweet it to me at jakestylesmtg. Special thanks to Jeremiah Fyra on Magic Online. I am using their burn deck directly, and I also got some advice from them about sideboarding because I had some questions since I have not played burn before. But I'm excited to try it out this week. Let's get to the matches and see how we do.